This battery dies like extremely fast. Okay. Performative. Actions or speech done primarily for show, validation, or to create a specific image rather than being genuine. Or my definition, doing the bare minimum to appear like you are chasing a vision. So being performative is interesting, right? Because it shows it shows two different sides of you, right? But I think to really understand the thought process and the personal insight of it is to kind of define what it is to be performative, right? So, what is performative? You're simply saying or acting as if you are living the life you wish you had. That can be for others or for yourself, but why? Are you performing for the social norms or is it to feed the drive you have, you know? Uh, it's something that makes you question not only the authenticity of the people around you, whether that's you know the randoms you come across day to day, whether that's at work, hanging out, running errands, um, your friends, family, the people closest to you, right? Um, are they truly being authentic or is it all performative, right? But then that again that brings it back to yourself, right? Are you being authentic or are you being performative? And are you performing for the others around you or are you performing for yourself? I think it's a mix of both overall, right? Because people people like to show success. They like to show ambition. They like to show drive to everybody for, as we know, validation. Or on the flip side, people show that to try and prove something to themselves. But the thing to understand is, are you proving it to yourself because you truly believe you can do that? You can do what you're aiming for? Or is that drive you had and that ambition you had performative? Are you doing the bare minimum, to just get by, to feel good? It's one of those things where it's like a prime example. People always, I'll do it tomorrow. And then they will do it tomorrow. And it's fantastic, right? Because they've started. And the hardest thing to do is to get started with anything, as we know, right? But that feeds more into you just performing because we all know it's hard to get started. So it's a thought process of, well, once I start, I'll continue. But then that second hard part comes in, and we all talk about it, very frequently. It's a conversation that's always had between a lot of different people, multiple people actually. But it's consistency, right? Because after you start, are you consistent? And that's where most people fall. You give it a week, maybe two, and then everybody tends to fall back into that, the bad habits, I guess is the best way to put it. It's interesting, you know, if I'm being honest, to be performative. Because I know for myself, my performance is always towards trying to prove that I have this drive that I'm actually not putting my actions toward. And that's what it all boils down to is, are you putting your actions toward your ambitions, toward your dreams? Do you truly believe you can do that, or are you simply just performing? Performative action versus authenticity. An action done to be seen rather purely from inner conviction, right? And it's the conviction part that matters, specifically that inner conviction. Where does your conviction lie? Because that's what really exposes how performative you are and what your performance is to yourself, and it allows you to look obviously within, right? Um, I've I've learned. I won't even say I've learned. I'm learning actively, currently, and continuously. I am learning to place my conviction in God. Right? It puts a smile on my face, as you guys can see, quite a bit. Primarily because, like, what other way to be convicted? You know, than to be obedient. That's where my conviction comes from, or I'm trying to allow my conviction to come from. I fall off quite a bit, but it's a thing of the conviction is obedience. To be obedient to the Lord, to be obedient to Father, um, right, and to understand and to know that He is always going to reach out to His fullest extent, but it's up to you as a follower, a child, right, and wholeheartedly a man or a woman of God, to do that final step of reaching out to Him and seeking that. And that's what builds that conviction, is that obedience. And when you build that inner conviction within yourself, you start to realize that whether you're performing for yourself or you're performing for others doesn't matter, because there shouldn't be a performance. It should be a following, right? It should be following of God first and foremost, okay? And then it's a following of, and I'll say it again, what you believe, right? If you believe you are set to do great things, then why just leave your performance for the small ones, if that makes sense, right? Be performative, because sometimes performing isn't bad, and some people have to understand that. Sometimes you need to be performative to psych yourself up, to build up some confidence. So, inner conviction, and what do you want your performance to be?